Hey, learning nerds, before we begin today's show, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, Idle Courses Academy. If you're looking to transition into the corporate instructional design space, you need the right guidance to do so. Dr. Sargent and her team have done an incredible job of focusing on what's important to be a corporate instructional designer, like storyboarding, ID models and theories, authoring tools, project management tactics, and more. They even cover how to make your resume and portfolio stand out from the crowd and have an impressive completion rate with their students working at organizations like Google, Salesforce, GM, Uber, Walmart, and Amazon. Also, you won't be going through this entire learning journey alone. You'll be studying alongside other aspiring instructional designers, as well as working with experienced mentors and coaches. And as an added bonus, you'll get a discount on my ebook, What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. So check out the industry-recognized program that's showing up in job descriptions as preferred training and education by going to idlecourses.com/academy. Enrollment is opening back up again in January, so be sure to use my promo code Luke to save $88 off your enrollment. And now, let's start the show. Hello, learning nerds, and welcome on in to the nerdiest podcast you're going to hear today. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I am your host. I am your certified learning nerd, being able to walk with you on this instructional design journey of ours. I'm a senior instructional designer and program manager over at MIT X-Pro. I'm also an author. I wrote a book called What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. And it's safe to say that my life is instructional design, and I love being able to share my experiences with all of you. And of course, you can find all my information over at drlukehobson.com. Well, folks, the last time we were chatting, I was saying that I had some big announcements coming, and I had to wait before sharing some of them. And what I was not expecting was that there was actually going to be some surprise announcements, I'll say, that I wasn't planning on. So now, for the start of this episode, I actually have 3 things I want to be able to share with you. So announcement number 1, which you may have seen on LinkedIn or in our Facebook group, is that I have finally published the Audible version of What I Wish I Knew Before Becoming an Instructional Designer. So if you prefer to listen to audiobooks as your way of consuming content, you can now spend 5 hours with me as we nerd out together about instructional design. If I could go back in time and try to be able to, if I was trying to plan things out in a smarter kind of way, I think I would rather have the audiobook come out first. I know for a fact that wouldn't have done as well. Physical books always do well in the beginning of things. So it all in due time came together. But I would hope that as you're listening to this audiobook version, it's really coming across as the conversational tone that all of you wrote about. Whenever I read an Amazon review, there was always something in there that basically the way that Luke wrote this book, it's like he's talking with me at a coffee shop and we're just nerding out about instructional design. I'm pretty sure that was like the number 1 comment that all of you said. So therefore, I gave it my all when it came to recording this audiobook. I did my absolute best to make it sound like you and I are hanging out together, and I still can't believe it came out to 5 hours. To give you some behind the scenes of that book, that process pretty much crushed me. It was almost like recording 30 podcast episodes all within a short period of time. And of course, if I found something like a 2-hour block of time or late in the evening, early in the morning, whatever, I was trying to record as much as I could, which at the time I thought that sounded great. And then I went back and I would listen to an episode and I could literally tell that my voice was getting strained and I was going up an octave because I was talking for so long so that the bass wasn't in my voice anymore. I was like, this doesn't even sound like me when you listen to chapter 16 if you're trying to be able to go and crush them all in a row. I was like, So I ended up redoing a bunch of them. I just went and hacked and slashed a ton of them out, and then it was an interesting process. If you want to record an audiobook, I will say that's interesting process. It's really difficult. I'm not sure if I would advise someone to do what I did, which is basically I just figured it out on my own and experimented. I would probably work with someone again in the future if I happen to ever do another audiobook. So that is announcement number 1. Now, announcement number 2, which was the actual announcement I was waiting to be able to share with you the last time I was talking about this on the podcast, is that I am now going to be joining an EDD program. I am actually going to be teaching in the University of Miami's Applied Learning Sciences EDD program. And inside of that program, they talk about a couple of different types of key core areas with teaching, with learning, and with design. So with the design parts of everything with the curriculum, I will be teaching those courses. Not all, but at least for some of them. And my courses just started on Monday. So far, it's been awesome. I love it. I loved my EDD program that I went through, but it didn't really focus on instructional design, which is actually very interesting with now what I'm currently doing for a living. But it was still great. I loved it. I just wanted something a bit different. And this opportunity pretty much fell into my lap from making some connections, with doing some networking, with talking with more people. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, here I am teaching instructional design to graduate students. So if you are thinking about an EDD, which this was the whole point with this entire type of a journey, is that so many of you have been coming to me about, Luke, I want to get a PhD, I want to get an EDD. Where do I go? What do I do? What's your recommendation? And this process led me to just researching a bunch of places and trying to figure out where potentially you could go. And this is actually how this all kind of came to be, is that through this research process, through meeting people, and eventually this opportunity came about of I could be a part of one. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great to me. So if you want to be able to think about going back to school for a doctorate, well, then I will throw out that recommendation there for you to check out that. And of course, you can just go on Google. You can type in University of Miami EDD program, and it will pop right up. And then for the third announcement that came out this morning before actually recording this podcast, is that I won an award. I actually won an award because of people like you who voted for me over with EduFlow Academy. You definitely know all about EduFlow if you've been listening to this podcast. And I won an award for being one of the top learning influencers, along with some other incredible, humongous names within the field. So I am extremely honored, and I'm so thankful for all of you for voting for me, for mentioning me. I didn't really know this was happening too much behind the scenes about some voting process, or else I probably would have told you to go vote for me. So it was all word of mouth because you're all wonderful people. So once again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. And it's just absolutely so awesome. And of course, I will keep on bringing the learning nerdum into 2023. Okay, with all of that being said, now let's talk about the main topic of today's episode, which is dispelling myths about instructional design in higher education. If you're curious about what it's like to be an instructional designer for the corporate sector or for the freelance sector, the internet has you covered. There are plenty of resources from knowledgeable people who share what they do as far as for the day in the life of an instructional designer within the corporate perspective or from the freelance perspective. And then there's higher education. You can go down a rabbit hole of twists and turns that will yield some really bizarre results. So today, I'd like to debunk some of these myths that I found online and share with you what it's like to actually be an instructional designer in higher education. I found my top 5 myths, if you will, and we are going to just go through them one by one. So here we go. Number 1, your SMEs are always professors. I can see where this myth originates from. If you work at a university and you are developing online courses, who better to turn to as subject matter experts than your faculty? I get it. It's entirely likely your SMEs are professors, but always, that's a bit of a stretch. The best learning experiences I've designed have been when I combined the academic and the industry perspectives. When you can back the theories with practical applications in the real world, that's where the magic happens. The more outside voices, the better, in my opinion. The other item I wanted to add to this bullet point is that there are more academic perspectives to bring in than solely professors. We always seem to harp right on professors, but of course, there are other positions within higher education who can serve as your subject matter experts. So here are some of my usual SMEs. You could have deans, associate deans, vice presidents, associate vice presidents, adjunct instructors, lecturers, scientists, researchers, grad assistants. And then from the corporate side of bringing in SMEs, we have the industry experts, we have retired industry experts, and we have consultants. So it's safe to say that SMEs come from all walks of life. And while it's likely an instructional designer in higher education would collaborate with a professor, there are many, many other possibilities to be able to work with other people. Myth number 2. The main role of an instructional designer in higher education is to convert a face-to-face class and flip it into an online version. I'll blame the pandemic for this one. It's no secret that the pandemic forced everyone to turn to technology to continue education. Now, to be clear, this was an emergency kind of situation, so dubbing this as emergency learning makes a lot of sense. From speaking with several colleagues in various universities and institutions, it became clear that students enjoy the flexibility of learning online and requested to have more options when enrolling into their courses. This led to hiring instructional designers at a rapid rate. And now that we are in 2023, it's time to shine more light into how online courses are properly developed. If you've never been a part of this process before, I'll tell you that there is an enormous amount of research and work that goes into creating new online courses, programs, and degrees. It's normal for research to be conducted with market testing, also using MC and burning glass to be able to collect that type of data. You're also going to be interviewing potential students to hear about, are they actually pursuing this, thinking about these different forms of topics? Does it make sense to be able to provide them with this kind of education? You're also going to be interviewing those who are currently in the field in and of itself. Oftentimes, you're going to be asking the experts who are, as I mentioned, industry experts or serving as your SMEs, when you go and talk to them and say, hey, is this a topic that you are currently working on, or is this a type of a value or a mission from the organization's perspective that they want all employees to learn about X within the next 5 years? You're going to be speaking with instructors about what they're hearing, what their students are currently asking inside of a classroom that's absolutely valuable data. And then, of course, you're going to be using Google for SEO results, looking up what key search terms are popping up, key search words. Those are absolutely crucial to being able to really put all of these pieces together. The idea that this could be done just quickly and flipping it into an existing product from an online version, it just doesn't happen. That's not really how things work. Additionally, now that designers have more time to develop proper learning experiences, the goal is to never take a face-to-face course as is and then directly place it online. There has to be a transformation. There has to be a transformative process to turn something from good to great. Whenever you see an advertisement for a new program, know that this wasn't done overnight. The third myth is that your entire job is online learning. I am going to take the L for this one because I think that I may have contributed to this myth. So, oops, didn't really mean to do that. But when I first started to share my instructional design experiences online, I talked about how I introduced myself to SMEs. In this introduction, I mentioned the phrase, I understand how people learn online. Now, many veteran instructional designers, rightfully so, called me out on that and said that we do way more than just online learning. And I think a bit of a background story here can help with this, especially if you are an aspiring instructional designer within higher education. When I first started to dabble in instructional design, I was in my mid-20s. The way that I was advised on how to introduce myself on projects was to talk about my expertise in learning. That is the exact phrase that I was told to be able to talk about. I wasn't comfortable with calling myself an expert in anything, and my SMEs could see right through me. It did not go well. Now, keep in mind that I have always worked within higher education, so when I would introduce myself to a professor and say that I am the quote-unquote learning expert, I could see the wheels turning inside of our heads like, I've been teaching for longer than you've been alive. So why are you here? And it's, well, yeah, that is a fair point. So after miserably failing time and time again with trying to explain my role on projects, I needed an ace up my sleeve. I needed to find a way to make him open up to me. And my trump card became online learning. Up until that point, everything I accomplished was in the online space. I had an entire degree from online learning. I taught students in online courses. I advised students going through online programs. It was safe to say that my bread and butter was online learning. And it finally dawned upon me that most of my SMEs knew the bare minimum of online learning, and it made them nervous. So when I introduced myself as being the guy who can make their online courses enjoyable, all of a sudden, everyone had a different tone when working with me. Everyone was happy to see me and that I was warmly welcomed on projects because I could do something that they did not know how to do. So I continued that trend, and I began to share this terminology of other instructional designers in hopes that they could break down those same barriers that I faced. Now, with all of that being said, there is much more to instructional design than just the online formatting, and it's entirely possible in your role that you will be leading in-person trainings, workshops, residencies, summits, and more. I've held training sessions for faculty and staff on how to create rubrics, design a syllabus, give proper feedback on assignments, design meaningful assessments, establish communities, and more. Your world will only be online. It's possible, but it's not likely. Myth number 4, your students are all from Gen Z. I'm sure there's a better way of phrasing this, but when higher education comes to mind, there is a myth that the students are always young adults. And I remember reading article after article talking about emergency learning and the images that circulated the internet with screenshots from Zoom with 30 18-year-olds looking lost and bored. Now, once again, your students could very well be from the younger generation. They could be from Gen Z. But for the courses and programs you design in higher education, chances are that your target audience will be much wider, especially if you are creating online programs. Most online students are actually millennials and Gen Xers. So the people my age, honestly. These are also the students who will be enrolling in professional development courses and programs. Yes, within the higher education space, professional education exists too. It's not talked about enough. We absolutely have many different types of areas for professional development, professional education services. When a student enrolls into an online course or program or certificate, they aren't applying for an entire degree. They want to learn the skills that will assist them immediately with their work. So with that being said, as a designer, you need to account for this within your designs and your support systems. This is why taking andragogy into consideration with your learning experiences is absolutely crucial. And now the last myth. Number 5, you do everything by yourself. If you Google image search instructional designers, your screen will be filled with cartoon drawings of superhero-like corporate employees. These are to represent the many hats that instructional designers wear and how oftentimes you are asked to go above and beyond your normal job description. Now, this isn't wrong. Actually, I think this is a fairly common thing among instructional designers to be asked to be the learning experts, the project managers, the researchers, the technologists, and more. Where this becomes a myth, though, is that there is a lack of representation with working as a team. I've been on a number of projects where there are multiple team members, and each one of us have an assigned role. For instance, there could be a junior and senior instructional designer, a project manager, an LMS administrator, and a multimedia team for filming and for graphics. When it comes to more significant programs, it's common to have a huge team help with accomplishing the design and the development process on time. Have there been times when I did literally everything by myself? Yeah, sure, there have definitely been those times. For most projects, though, there is a huge emphasis on collaboration and communication among team members to get the job done. This will absolutely vary depending upon the institution and the size, the scope, the budget, the resources, and more dedicated to the project. But for all the reasons I just mentioned, human skills will always be valuable to an instructional designer. So, folks, what do you think? Are there any other myths perhaps that I forgot to mention? I actually had a much longer list. I had like 10, and I was trying to whittle them down. So I just wanted to be able to do the top 5 myths that I found online, on YouTube, and blogs, and just from other places on the internet, and basically saying what I found. But hey, please feel free to share your own experiences and talking about some of these myths that perhaps you've actually heard, or maybe there was something that I did not talk about. Feel free to tag me on LinkedIn and to share this, or of course, you can go to drlukehobson.com and comment on this blog post as well. Once again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please give it a 5-star rating wherever you are listening. A bunch of you will message me on LinkedIn saying how much you love the podcast, but you haven't rated the show. And I love that. I love hearing from you. But also, whenever you do leave a review for the podcast, it really, really does help to be able to spread the word about the show and to make sure that other folks know about instructional design. But that is all I have for you today, learning nerds. So, of course, stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.